Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Thoughts from the Movies. Things might look a little bit different behind us today. That is because we are coming to you live today from the Union Fitness Studios.
Woo.
Located on the North Shore of Pittsburgh, Union Fitness is more than a traditional gym. It's a place where you can transform yourself inside and out with a variety of classes based around fitness, yoga, strength, and performance training. At Union Fitness, they believe it is their duty to hold themselves and their clients to a higher standard. They practice what they preach and uphold values that make Union Fitness the community that it is. Go to unionfitness.com today and sign up for a consultation. Through Union, there is strength.
Just a fantastic job.
We have
that was
live
outstanding.
ad reads.
That was outstanding. You made it through that whole thing. I'm so proud of you.
And we have whiskey.
We have whiskey and we have ads. We're slowly becoming Hollywood. We really are. It's fantastic.
Oh,
Great
boy,
job,
are
buddy.
we. Justin,
Josh.
I feel like I have to redact a statement that has been made on this show before.
Oh boy.
I have been quoted as saying David Fincher is a fraud.
Many times. Yes.
This weekend, my wife says to me, she goes, Joshua. I said, yes, dear. She said, I want to watch a movie. And I'm like, okay, let's watch a movie. She's like, I want to watch a good movie. And I'm like, oh, all right, let's go. So after spending more time flipping through my queue than actually watching the movie, I landed on David Fincher's Zodiac.
Which is such a good. Oh, it's so good. We talked about doing one of our review shows for Zodiac a few times and never landed on it, but you finally got to it.
I got to it, and boy, howdy, was that a psychological thriller.
So good.
I loved it. Robert Downey Jr. was fucking incredible in it.
Mm-hmm. And that's before Iron Man. I think that was 2007, so he's still like,
right.
People forgot he existed.
He's on the come up, comeback, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Gyllenhaal always just puts in just a brilliant effort at all times.
Mm-hmm. Mark Ruffalo, of course. Another future Avenger.
So it was funny because every scene that Ruffalo and Downey Jr. had together, I'm like, oh, look, Hulk and Iron Man are talking, and they don't like each other in this movie either. So I really did enjoy it a lot. And I want to retract my statement that he's a hack, because he also directed a movie that we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they call in the business a transition, kids. Books to movies.
Nice.
We're going to talk about some success stories, some tales of woe, and what the actual fuck, and then we're going to go through some overrated, underrateds.
Favorite, yes.
But one of the first movies...
Well, you know what? Before we do that,
go ahead.
Before we do that, I want to talk about real quick what in your mind makes for a good adaptation, right? Because the focus of our show tonight is books to film. We're going to talk about some that were successful, some that were not successful, and then some that are just kind of bizarrely out there, right? So, what do you think?
Why didn't we drink whiskey from the start of the show? This makes me so happy.
But what, in your mind, is there anything in particular that you look for in terms of when you're watching a movie that's been adapted from a book? I have two things that I really look for. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Go first.
Okay, so I think when you're adapting a book into a feature, I think the two things that you want to have to make it a successful adaptation, right, and to leave people, all fans, satisfied with it, I think you have to be faithful to the book,
mm-hmm.
and I think the movie has to capture the same spirit that the book did. If you can feel the things that you felt reading the book, or if there's just the same energy and the tone, I think those are the two most important things when you're adapting in order to be the most successful, because we're going to go over some ones that were changed heavily between the book and film and were either still successful or not successful. So those, it's not necessarily it has to happen, but I think the best ones, and the ones we're going to talk about first, they were very faithful to the books, and they captured the essence of the book itself. So those are kind of my two prereqs for a successful adaptation. Do you have anything else that you want to add, or anything you think makes for a bad adaptation?
I think the easiest way to go from a good adaptation to a bad adaptation is to change the main character's appearance.
Really? Just the look?
Just the look alone. And this is not this comment sounds really bad, but I'm going to say it anyway. The second they cast Idris Elba as Roland in The Dark Tower, I knew they fucked up.
Wow, really? I mean,
Yeah.
Idris Elba's a fantastic actor, and a lot of people
he
love him.
He holds a lot of the things that you would find in Roland that you're like, yes, this works. You know, the stoicness of it, the deep voice, the that kind of stuff. But I knew he was too young, and he didn't have enough hair. I mean, it's silly, but Roland...
He doesn't have enough hair to be the character.
Roland has long, sweeping hair. And it takes up, like, because he wears it underneath his hat, and there's a crucial scene in the books where he removes it, and it cascades down, and it's knotted with years, and it's dirty, and it's when Susanna's washing him. But it's a really big moment, and I knew, like, that would never... that you can't have that moment. Also, one of the main characters in the book is black.
Mm-hmm.
And how is he supposed to interact? And she's a civil rights activist. So how is Roland, as a black guy, going to interact with this character that is so steeped in, social whatever, right? But it's just the small thing of his appearance changing that made immediately I knew it wasn't going to work.
Very interesting. I haven't heard that one before. And it's something that seems...
When you saw Daniel Radcliffe, you went, that's fucking Harry Potter.
I honestly, honest to God, you do. You really do.
You really do. When
yeah.
you see Frodo, you go, and you see Elijah Wood, you're like, yep, that's it. Nailed it.
Sure.
You have to nail the main character. You have to nail the main character in appearance, otherwise it's not going to work. And that's where, I think, where Gatsby went correctly. The rest of it was bad, but yes.
Well, we will get into both of those,
right.
Dark Tower and Gatsby, later in the show. Okay, so now that we talked about our ideas of what's good
sure.
and bad, let's get into the actual movies here. So
sure.
We're gonna do, just to recap, we're gonna start with some of the ones we think are the best adaptations. Then we're gonna go to some that were a little less so, and then we have ones that it's just like, what the hell was going on with that one?
Right.
Before we get into overrated,
right.
So let's go to the success stories. Right?
Sure.
The first one we have is your boy,
my man,
your new boy, David Fincher's Fight Club,
right.
based on Chuck Palahniuk's book. And this one, you had liked this one from Fincher before you saw Zodiac, or no? Or was this one that you?
So
were
do you
coming around
remember?
to?
Let me transport you back to my basement. It is 2007, and I went to Target, and I bought a double-pack DVD of Boondock Saints and Fight Club, and our life was changed forever.
Yeah. 17-year-olds out there watching.
Right.
That's what you need.
Right. So when I saw it, I was like, this is the greatest movie ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, period. Actually, no. I said Boondock Saints is the greatest movie ever. Fight Club's the second greatest movie ever. Yeah, no, this, to me, was one of the first, like, gotcha movies that I'd ever, like, really watched intelligently. Because we had started taking film classes in high school enough that, like, we were able to identify that this was a really great story that was acted by 3 top-notch, badass actors that would go on to frame my tastes heavily for the next 5 years. And Helen Bonham Carter, Brad Pitt, and Edward Norton.
Mm-hmm. And what's so great about it is that it does stick to, I think it just captures so much of the book's anarchy
yes.
and chaos and some of the...
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
Just like the innate brutality that a lot of guys, oh boy, throwing stuff over there.
This is why we didn't drink whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it just captures the spirit of the book. One of the things we were talking about first, right? I mean, it's faithful to the book, and, the surprise at the end is still just as much it hits you. And a lot of it comes to David Fincher's directing with capturing the right mood of the book.
Yes.
We talked about his moody lighting
yes.
a few shows back, and it just... The moodiness of it adds to the sort of noirish feeling and like the street level underground dirtiness
and
of it all.
Fincher, not quite like Nolan, where he's telling the story either backwards, forwards, or out of order, but he does tell a very good shifted perspective story, where you're getting perspectives from three different characters, two in this case, two different characters, and each character has you believing one thing, right? That is totally opposite from what the other characters believe. Fincher's quite gifted in that form of storytelling, and Fight Club is the perfect adaptation of that.
Yes. So in terms of, it checks my boxes at least. It's faithful to the book for all the major points of it, and it captures so much of the essence of it, which, again, those are the two biggest things. You watch it and it just makes you want to go out and start beating people up, right? Which is exactly the way it feels in the book. And even, the cooking with the soap and everything, and it's just all the details are there. With what Meatloaf character? What's his name? The guy with the man boobs. I'm blanking on his character's name. I think it's Bob. Is it Big Bob?
Yeah, Bob.
But yeah, so it captures all the little details too. So Fight Club, fantastically done. Success on both levels, we think. So that's one of our tops.
Yes.
Next, we have a movie that is insanely personal to me.
Near and dear to your heart.
Very near and dear to my heart. In fact, tattooed directly over my heart, one of the lines from the book. And Pittsburgh Shot, of course, Stephen Chbosky's Perks of Being a Wallflower. Stephen Chbosky, of course, himself a Pittsburgh boy. The Perks of Being a Wallflower film and the movie is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had reading as a kid, like Charlie, and just feeling the things that he felt in terms of being an outsider and just having those feelings in high school and getting picked on as a kid. And I related so much to Charlie in the way he spoke about the problems that he had and finding friends and things like that. It was just so relatable to me. And then the magic of the movie, I remember seeing it over at Southside Works, and I'll never forget it, or at the Waterfront, excuse me, was that I felt exactly the same thing watching every scene of that movie as I did reading the book. Like it just was such an emotional thing, and not only because the director and like the cast was there, or like the extras and everything, because it was a Pittsburgh screening, which was very cool, but just such an incredible, so faithful to the book, and just what it makes you feel when you're watching it, I think is perfectly in comparison with what you feel when you're reading the book. And again, I don't know of a movie that I can think of on this list that has done it more so than this.
Yeah, I've not read the book. I've watched the movie a number of times. It's one of my favorites to rewatch. And to me, not only is it it's a great coming of age tale. It definitely feels very close to us because like they eat at King's and like they're at Mount Lebanon and like all these different, really easy to pick things, right?
Yeah, Pittsburgh ticks throughout.
Right.
It takes place in Pittsburgh.
Right.
So
you see the tunnel is obviously a giant part of the scene.
Of course.
But also, I believe the star making of Emma Watson.
Yeah, it's interesting. This came out, this is 2012, I believe, and it was, at the tail end of Harry Potter, and she was branching out into different things.
And she cuts all of her hair off. She's like, I'm no longer Hermione.
Did the American accent? Yeah, this was, I remember the director, Stephen Chbosky, said, do you remember the scene in the fourth Harry Potter where it's the ball and she's coming down the steps in her dress in slow motion?
Yes.
He said that was the scene that convinced him that she could do this movie. And the subsequent scene with her and Ron like having a fight on the steps, like those two in tandem.
And she does. I was bummed that you picked the clip where they're in King's, because I think the clip where she shows up for the first time is so much stronger, and there's that light like haloing her like an angel, and she just it's old school filmmaking. It's very much like. Back in the day where they had a beauty light and a diva light for every leading lady, and you got that beauty shot of them off the drop and like the first time they're introduced and stuff. I love that scene. I love that shot so much. Also, small note, she starts eating his chips without asking.
Oh, really?
It's such a cute little thing that happens that you're like, oh, like she makes you fall in love with her through that movie.
Yeah, I think all three of the characters do, and it just feels like their group of misfits is just such what we went through, and all of them, whether it's Patrick or Sam or Charlie, all just make you fall completely in love with them and their flaws and their struggles of various stages of high school. It's a book that's on a lot of lists as far as being banned in classrooms because it touches on such controversial subjects for teen.
Rape,
You know,
suicide.
suicide, murder, and drugs, and like you said, abuse and things like that. So it touches on a lot of harsh themes, and for a lot of reasons, it's not in many classrooms, but should be. So this for me personally is in the conversation for the best of all time. And unfortunately, not a ton of people saw it at the box office. But again, it's sort of a smaller book and a smaller movie, but it's absolutely wonderful.
It reminds me of Garden State.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
That's how it feels to me. It's Garden State for our generation.
I can absolutely agree with that.
Whereas Garden State might have been more of if you were in college in the early 2000s kind of thing.
Right.
Versus this.
And I don't know that Garden State was based on a book. I want to say it was not.
Maybe not.
But it could be.
But, yeah.
So, okay, what is next? Oh, of course, one of the biggest franchises in the history of film, one that everyone knows very well, Mr. Harold J. Potter, Harry Potter. Now, this is Harry Potter. We're just speaking in generally of the entire franchise, right? And in terms of success as a movie, everyone knows how the box office is done, and they're giant blockbusters, all of them throughout and everything. But really, the most important thing is that the books remained so faithful, or the movies remained so faithful to the books, time and time again. And occasionally, it had to leave things out, like some of the house elf stuff and some Quidditch was left out. But due to time or budget and things like that, you can only put so much in a movie, right? But the authenticity and, honestly, the magic of all these films, the detail of the costumes and the effects and the fact that they cast all British actors and kept everything loyal to J.K. Rowling's vision. I mean, I think the authenticity of these movies is phenomenal in terms of who they brought into all of them. Like, genius. Nobody in America knew who Michael Gambon was or, Imelda Staunton or any of these big British people. And Americans just weren't used to it, but it added this layer of authenticity to it. So they're just all around. The production value is through the roof on them. They're faithful to the stories. Some of the acting, I think, gets a little out of hand, not so great the more it goes on. But honestly, it's just they pleased everybody, I think, for the most part, except minor things.
I get chills every time.
Yeah.
Every time Sirius is killed, I get chills because they did such an amazing job at taking you right back to how you felt in those books. Watching Sirius die in the books and that gut feeling that happens. You're like, no, he finally had a chance to be happy. And now it's being ripped away. And they capture it so perfectly. And even after the next cut is Bellatrix, almost whoa, I was not expecting that reaction from him when I killed him. You know what I mean? She's taken aback by Harry's reaction, but then the evil starts to curl up around her lips, and she's got that crazy smile.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's just any way you slice it. I remember the first night that we saw it together, opening night 2000 or 1999. I think
Did we see Phoenix
2001?
together?
I don't remember Phoenix, but I remember Sorcerer's
the original
Stone,
one, yeah.
Number 1, yeah, which was I think 2001. I mean, I'll never forget Chris Columbus, the director of the first two movies, just brought them to life impeccably. The Great Hall is the Great Hall. Yep. The robes are the robes. There was nothing that I was like, ooh, that's weird. Yeah, the sorting hat, Fluffy the dog, good. Hagrid. You can go on and on. I mean, the Sorcerer's Stone itself.
How good is the Hagrid cast? Holy shit, did they nail Hagrid?
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's Robbie Coltrane, another actor that U.S. people, kids and adults, probably didn't really know that much of.
Sure.
But all of the actors are just so perfectly cast. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think as a franchise, and you got to remember, this is 8 friggin' movies, right? This is 20 years, 8 movies, all of them just fantastically done.
And they all were can't miss. It wasn't I think very vividly to Narnia. The first Narnia came out, and I'm like, Narnia! Yes! I loved Narnia as a kid. And then I was like, okay, they did it. And I did not see the rest of them. Sorry, Wade. But that was really how I felt. I was just bummed. It just wasn't that good.
And that's also what adds to the legend of these, right? Not only the scale that they are and the size and spectacle that they are, but because of what they needed to be, right? I mean, there was no room for error when you have one of these once-in-a-lifetime sort of properties, right? You know, you look at other YA franchises like Twilight and the Hunger Games, Divergent, and all these other things that have tried to be Harry Potter since.
YA stands for young adult. If any of the rest of you were confused, I had to put that one together in my brain.
Thank you. Yes. But yeah, so any of these other properties, everyone wants to be the next Harry Potter, and so many of them have tried, but it's just none were at the level the books were, and you know, it's just there's so much pressure at that time because you have to please an entire world of fans, and you have to keep in mind, like, there are probably parents and some people going into these movies who have not read the books, so you have to make it so they understand what's happening as well too, which is not an easy task. And Steve Kloves, the screenwriter who wrote all of these except one of them, I believe, did such a fantastic job in pulling the right things, the right set pieces, and the right emotional beats just to include everything. Like, I honestly can't think of anything I would have liked to see that weren't in the movies, except maybe Peeves the Poltergeist. That's the only thing.
Yeah, Peeves is a big part of the books.
And again, the house elf stuff did not make it in, like Spew with Hermione does, and Quidditch kind of lost its legs there after a while. But honestly, I feel like all the characters got in there, and there was all the great action sequences and everything. So,
what's your favorite book and movie?
My favorite movie, I think, has to be the first one. It was such an incredible experience, unparalleled by the others. I can't even put it into words. My favorite book, a lot of people I think like Azkaban. I would probably say, oh, that's a tough one, man. Maybe the last one, just because everything was so big and it all wrapped it up at that point.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the first one of each is just so special because it's so unique, and you know, that was 20 years ago and we haven't seen anything even close to it. But what do you think?
I think my favorite movie is Azkaban because it's when the series visually took a turn to the dark.
Alfonso Cuarón,
right, and kills it. And then book, probably Goblet.
Wow,
so much happens in Goblet.
I think a lot of people dislike Goblet, so that's interesting.
See, I love Goblet. I think because I love the World Cup, I love the way that translates to what happens at Hogwarts. I love the Viking dudes. I love the fairies.
The tournament, yeah.
Like, I'm into the whole thing. Like,
Plus,
I think,
go ahead.
You know, Ron and Hermione take a backseat pretty heavily in that one too. And I'm a Harry first guy. Ron and Hermione to me are definitely side characters. I'm a Harry first guy, and that's his book. He grows up a lot in that book.
Plus Voldemort comes back at the end.
Yes,
so, long time coming for that. So
sick.
Anyway, Harry Potter, unquestioned, I don't think by anybody how fantastic that was.
I agree.
Let's take it back a little bit because we don't want to do all newer movies. We are going back to way back into the 50s, I believe, for this next one. This is Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, which is obviously one of the most well-known books of all time. And again, when you have such a well-known property, there's such a pressure with that adaptation because you have to please all those fans, you know, and there's almost like a level of respect for the material that you want to do it justice when adapting it. And Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch is ranked by a lot of people as the #1 hero in cinema history, if you look at AFI's lists and other lists. You know, as the lawyer defending his client here, a black man accused of beating a white woman, which most people know the story. But again, insanely faithful to the material, and it just captures exactly what it needed to. Like the end when Gregory Peck is saying he is not guilty. Like he's trying to convince an incredibly racially biased jury and courtroom where the black people are separated up on the balcony watching as everything happens below. He's trying to convince them of the clear and blatant innocence of his client, who he knows in his heart, and it seems like everyone knows is going to be put away. You know, like there's no chance of him getting off for this. But it's just a remarkable property, and the movie somehow almost even became more than the book, if that makes sense. Like it is regarded as highly, if not higher.
Well, I think yes, Gregory Peck's performance is incredible. I think though the part that captured me, not only in the book, as one of the ones I've read,
there we go,
but also visually, was Boo Radley.
Hmm.
And you know, Scout's relationship with Boo Radley and that noise that that like would play before Boo Radley would like do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is that's what's memorable to me about the movie and the book is Boo Radley and Scout's relationship. Just really fucking fascinating, and that this movie in particular Tarantino points to as a big source of influence for him, like with music cues and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
like giving bad guys a sound effect and that kind of stuff.
And it's also great because it captures what the book did of showing everything from Scout's point of view, right? And the movie shows you
Right.
this world from this child's perspective. It doesn't put you with Atticus or the adults or anything like that. It does such a great job of still keeping you seeing this world through her eyes,
Sure.
which is why, again, it's so powerful. You know, it's like, how could these adults do this to another human being, you know?
How don't they understand?
Exactly.
Right.
And again, you know, this is 50 or 60 years ago, so it's different times and not so different times, honestly, with how the world is today.
Sure.
So certainly a relevant property, but it's just interesting how every now and then you have a movie that becomes more than the book, and I think this is one where To Kill a Mockingbird became more, if not more legendary than the book itself,
Right.
and iconic. So it has to be included in the list. Another one, staying back sort of in that era, we're going to the 70s now. Of course, it's The Godfather. I mean, I don't think there's too much to say that hasn't already been said about it. It's in the conversation for one of the greatest movies of all time. It's incredibly faithful to the book. There are certain other novel properties that explore more of the Corleone legacy, like Luca Brasi's past and things like that. You know, but in terms of going back to Sicily and everything, it's it captured all the violence and all the intricacies of the family politics of it all. Like, I don't know if there's anything more we need to say about it other than
I didn't know it was a book.
Mario Puzo helped write the screenplay. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's a key to success, right? J.K. Rowling was a part of every single Harry Potter. I think that definitely helps if you have the person that wrote it. Michael Crichton was part of Jurassic Park.
Sure.
That definitely helps.
Which is not always the easiest thing to do because a lot of novelist writers, it's a very different art writing a
Right.
novel and writing a screenplay. There are a lot of technical elements to writing screenplays that people don't realize. And you go from writing a novel, which is just endless amounts of words and thoughts and actions and all these things, and you have to condense everything very
Right.
quickly. So it's not a craft that a lot of people can do, and some authors try and they fail. Some don't even bother to try. But yeah, so The Godfather obviously is going to be in this conversation. Did you know that The Godfather was only meant to be a 2-part series? Coppola only did 1 and 2, thinking that was going to be it, and then the studio forced him to do number 3, which is why it kind of sucks and why everyone hates number 3. Although it's being re-edited and released this fall, so that'll be interesting.
There's a quick way to not be successful as well. If the director wants to do 2 movies, don't make it 3.
Yeah.
It was the Harry Potter, I believe the Harry Potter director that came to them and said, we need to make Hallows into 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew they weren't going to get it all in one movie.
Right. And this is sort of the reverse, where Coppola has 2 movies in mind, which is why the first 2 are so incredible, and both their endings are so iconic, right? And then the third one's just kind of like, you know, it's like 10 years, 15 years later, and it's just weird. Like, it goes into all the religious stuff, and people generally, even though it was nominated for Best Picture, generally dislike the
Right.
third one. It's kind of like iconic for being shit. So yeah, it was only supposed to be a 2-part series, and the studio said, no, we're doing a third one. So, but of course the original Godfather, obviously it is what it is. It's on the list for best adaptations. The next one we have, personally, again, for me, I think that not many people realize how awesome this adaptation was in terms of reading holes and seeing the movie holes. Not only is everything there, but you just feel what you felt, right, with the book. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the casting. The cast is fantastic of Holes, from the adults to the children. But also the music. I think the soundtrack is phenomenal. I mean, I think it's incredibly underrated. But you put Shia LaBeouf in there with Jon Voight and Sigourney Weaver and all the kids, Tim Blake Nelson right there. But it's just fantastically cast, great movie that really captures the spirit of the book. I mean, I think Holes people completely overlook, for being an amazing adaptation.
Stanley Yelnats perfectly cast, Zero perfectly cast. Those two things. That goes back to what I was talking about. You gotta nail the main character. Those two characters are exactly as I pictured them.
Do you feel that way about the other boys of Camp, of the D10 boys, Camp Green Lake?
Yeah.
Armpit and X-Ray and all those guys.
I don't think that I'm bothered by their cast at all. I don't think I don't think about it at all. And honestly, it's not like something that stands out to me. Like if Gimli didn't have a beard, I mean, like it wasn't like a wild departure if it was at all.
Yeah. You know what shot I love too in Holes? I think that just sums up, like, it's just such an awesome intro to the world, and I really wanted to include it, but it doesn't have any of the characters in it, so I didn't pull that one. But when Stanley's on the bus being driven into the camp, you're pulling back from the bus, and you just start to see hole, and then all of a sudden you're just like a million of them everywhere, and you're like very high up watching the bus drive through the desert, and there's like for miles all you can see are holes. I mean, it's just it's a kid's book and a kid's movie, but I think as an adult you can just watch it and be so enraptured by it. At least I personally can, and I haven't seen it in a very long time. But if you went back and watched it now, you would certainly, I think, be drawn into the emotion of the story. Not only Zero and Stanley's story, but the Kiss and Kate Bartlett of it all. So
I think too, and I had to just double check myself that I wasn't speaking out of school here. Part of the coolest part of this book was it came out in 1998 and immediately got put into schools.
Yeah.
It immediately became part of curriculum.
Right.
So not only was it a book written for us at that exact age, but then our teacher's like, here, read this book. It's about you. And I'm like, yes, this is cool. I'll read this. And when I was Googling book jacket covers today, this came up. And it was the Scholastic Book Fair all over again. I could smell it. I had my little paper sheet in my hand. Like, everything came rushing back the second I saw this cover.
The Pizza Hut thing, the Pizza Hut stickers where you get a pan pizza every time you read a book.
Yep.
And plus, Louis Sacker was a big kids writer at the time when we were in school and this book came out, because he had done all the Wayside Stories, if you remember those.
I didn't know that.
The school that was built up instead of sideways, so that whole book series. And I don't remember which came out first. But, so Louis Sacker was a big part of our childhood. And the movie came out a few years later and was just incredibly loyal to the book, which I love so much.
And had Shia LaBeouf, who we've already gloated about being amazing.
I'll gloat about him all day.
Last episode, go check that out. Yeah. TV show actors that became film stars.
That's right. Okay, so we're on to the last one. This is the best again. Remember, this is the best. So we did Fight Club, Perks of Being a Wallflower, the Harry Potter series, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Godfather, Holes, and now this is the last one, which honestly you had to be expecting, whoever's paying attention out there. This
my
is
bad.
Holes again.
There we go.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy, which, honest to God, I think The Lord of the Rings from start to finish is in the conversation for the best trilogy in movie history, and I'd put it up there with like Toy Story 1 to 3.
Bean before he gets killed.
It's just, it is what it is. Again, it's like The Godfather. Everyone knows about it. It's on a scale completely unheard of before. It was nominated for every award under the sun. It made billions of dollars. And the only, there are certain things obviously you can't include in the movie because of the length and the density of the books. I mean, I think the only real big thing is the character of Tom Bombadil was not included in the movies, which is really, fine. I don't think you miss him at all.
No, because all right, so you have the Hobbits, right? The 4. And then the way I think about the trio, the big 3, right? In my mind, and the people who in the books and in the movies drew me in was Legolas, Gimli, and
Aragorn.
Thank you. Aragorn. Were the 3 that captured my imagination as a kid when my dad used to read these books to me, and then when they were on the big screen, I'm like, yep, those are my guys. I care less till the Ents get here. But I could care less what the Hobbits are doing. I could care less about what Gandalf's doing. I love these 3. I love the fight scenes. Helm's Deep is one of the greatest movie scenes ever. Just
unbelievable.
The magnitude of it. and you watch the behind the scenes on that of all this night shoot after night shoot after night shoot, and then how they, a lot of it is practical
A
effects.
practicality of it, absolutely.
It's awesome. And obviously just like the counting. Legolas and Gimli counting how many people they've get, like
Right.
1, 2, I've got you beat, elephant.
Yeah, like
and then he's like
it could
14, 15.
It could just be like a really depressing movie.
Right.
Like it's just everything sucks and it's just the worst times. And,
Right.
But there's all these little moments of heart and humor and everything, and it makes you feel for these characters in various circumstances. So, 100% agree on that. And I mean, I have to shout out the makeup, which is unbelievable, of all the orcs and everything. Like this is one where the characters just came to life so incredibly, not only because of the actors they chose, right? Because of the costumes and the makeup and all the intricacies that went into all of that. I mean, it's not like Harry Potter where you could picture perfectly in the books and then it became that on the screen, but I don't think it was harder to picture this book because it was such a fantastical made up everything that was like completely different time and space, but it just comes to life so beautifully in every visual way, like the Nazgul terrify me to death. Like I wanted to include the clip where they're at Weathertop in Fellowship and they come out of the darkness when the hobbits are just sitting and they're waiting and they just like walk out of the dark. Like to this day, if I watch that scene, it gives me chills. Like it's just so incredible, the characters, the uniqueness of everything.
So that concludes the overrated, underrated portion.
Those are the success.
I'm sorry,
those
the
are
success
those are the
stories.
best
Jesus
ones.
Christ.
We started with the good ones. Yeah.
He wants to take a commercial break. He wants to go to commercial. We'll be right back. Talk about Tales of Woes, Hobbits. Right after this.
That's weird. It's scary.
We're calling it the Idiot Hour. Hey, Denny Hamlin, new NASCAR fan here.
You really gotta blow.
He wears the skull of his dead mother. And then when he finally copes with the death of his mother,
He becomes his
he
mother.
becomes Marowak.
Correction. Ovi is the greatest offensive talent we've ever seen.
I am E.
You dumbass.
Your Gollum impression is scarily accurate.
He wants the fish.
Like it's giving me chills, man. I'm glad there's a table in between us. Okay, so from books to movies, we started off talking about what makes a good adaptation, and then our first category was the best of the best, right? The Godfathers and the Lord of the Ringses and Harry Potters and all that stuff. And Josh needs another drink, which is fine. Watch my books. Oh, you're just going for it. Okay. Taken away, Catch Me If You Can, and Perks of Being a Wallflower. And now we're going to get into, we have labeled the Tales of Woe, which these are going to be the ones that were not so successful, right? So first we had the good, now we're having the, something went a little bit wrong with these ones, and they just didn't work in their adaptation. So the first one that we have, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm a hot mess. This is what happens. You don't watch Two Beers Deep. You should see what happens when we go way past Two Beers Deep on Two Beers Deep. It's it's an experience.
Yeah.
All right. Tales of Woe.
All right. So
that's what we're doing.
We're getting into some of the ones that were not so successful in their adaptations.
Tales of Woe.
So the first one that we have, pretty universally rejected, is The Giver, which, honest to God, before I was doing this research, I forgot it even was a movie because it's so awful. But the book, which I read, I think, in 7th grade, is fantastic. I mean, it's a beautiful tale about this utopian society in the future where nobody has memories, and it's a very sort of like emotionally devoid world, very colorless and all that stuff. And this young boy gets chosen when everyone's being divided into their sections of what they're going to do in life. This one boy gets chosen to be the next receiver of memories, right? He's going to become the next giver and the one through whom all of past memories are given. So he's the only one in the society who knows what music is and what colors are and what things taste like. And the movie just fell completely on its face. The casting is interesting because you have Jeff Bridges and you have Meryl Streep and you have Katie Holmes.
Should have been good.
So you have big names in it. And the main character, Brenton Thwaites, was an actor who just did not take. He was in the new Pirates of the Caribbean, the 5th one that came out, and he was a guy who was more pretty than he was talented, I think. And so that's part of it. There was a lot of wooden acting in this movie, but it just did not translate well because it's not the most visual book. It's more about the thoughts and the ideas behind it, right? But it's hard to always translate that into film, so they had to make it more visual. They had to put some more action in it, and they had to change it a little bit. But the whole thing just fell flat, and it just did not have the same level of mesmerizing that the book did, because it's really, really interesting when you imagine a society where only one person has all those memories and they have to pass it on to another young boy, you know? But the movie just did not work because of the acting, because of the changes that it made in terms of adding the action and trying to increase the visual sense of everything. So it was a miss, unfortunately.
All right, Justin.
Uh-oh.
You do the drinking. Because I have some shit I need to say.
Yes. Another one that was, I will say this first for everyone who doesn't know about The Gunslinger. This movie had like 18 different iterations. Various directors were attached to it for TV, and then it was film, and then it was TV, and then it was film again. Like, this was almost an impossible one to adapt. So, Josh, you know these books very well. Can you tell us about that?
So,
Why?
It needs to be said first that Stephen King himself was part of this. He was a contract? I don't know. He was asked.
Executive producer.
Thank you.
Yeah, EP.
Here's the problem. Stephen King in this series, this particular book series, there's 7 of them, wrote them over 3 decades, maybe 4. And so the storytelling changes pretty dramatically. And he has never forced himself to sit down and write a Dark Tower novel. He says that it just comes to him, that Roland has visited him in his dreams and said, it's time to tell my tale again. Super weird, but I dig it.
I love it, actually.
Right? So Stephen King did not go, I need to make a Dark Tower movie. And because of the themes that are in the Dark Tower series, the movie is actually supposed to be a sequel to the entire series because, spoiler alert, the Dark Tower series begins as it ends. The gunslinger chased the man in the black across the desert. The book folds back in on itself, basically, right? So after Roland saves the Dark Tower from collapsing, it starts again, and he's forever trapped in this battle with Walter, the man in black, and yada, yada, yada. Here's some things they did not do well. They picked Matthew McConaughey to be the man in black, and they picked Idris Elba to be Roland. Like I've already stated, there's some serious conflict in characters later if they decided to make more movies with Odetta Walker. So that's a big problem. The boy who played Jake I thought was fine, but Jake all of a sudden has magical powers. Jake doesn't have magical powers in the series at all. Okay? All of the cool Roland gunslinger fighting tricks, they basically just tried to remake The Matrix with. So that sucked. Because Roland is the difference between like Roland in the movies and Roland's in the books is Roland is the last remaining gunslinger. And a gunslinger is a knight, but they have guns instead of swords and shields, okay? So his craft is practiced over decades of doing it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Not that he has magical powers that lets him control bullets. The movie indicates that Roland has magical powers. So that's all fucked. Also, the Man in Black is not a charismatic, witty, like, hey, I'm a fucking guy with powers. Hey, all right. That's not him. The Man in Black is scary. The Man in Black is closer to Voldemort than he is to what McConaughey plays. The whole thing felt like a weird money grab after the success of Game of Thrones. And quite honestly, this would have been better served as a long-form TV series. And HBO, if you want me to direct it, I know you own the rights to the TV series. I will fucking do it because it deserves to be told. It's an amazing story. Has a lot of beautiful moments. It has if you love Game of Thrones, you don't know shit. You don't know shit because Dark Tower's better.
So wait, the movie is The Dark Tower. How many
The
books is the movie based
is
on?
roughly based off of the idea that is in the first book, The Gunslinger. The Dark Tower is the series.
Okay, and how many are in the series?
7 or 8.
Okay, so the movie The Dark Tower is based on just the first one. Is that right?
Yes, no. So let's see how many
8 books and 2 short stories.
There you go. Yeah, because Lion Through the Keyhole is 2 short stories from Roland's childhood. So it's not totally based on the Gunslinger because none of the events that happen in Gunslinger happen in the movie. The characters are from the first book, but it's totally different.
Okay.
And I think again that Stephen King has said that it is a companion piece to the series, not an adaptation of a book.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was one that they tried for many, many years to adapt, and it was just one that was unadaptable for a long time. They just couldn't crack how to properly do it, and they couldn't figure out the format and kept changing people that were involved and everything. So it was a long time coming. And
it has to be done as a show.
I think this was probably the only possible outcome given how much difficulty they had with the material, right? They said, fuck it, we're doing it this way, go do it, and then it falls on its face.
Yeah, I mean, and I could go on and I could do a whole show on this fucking movie because it really bothered me. At the end of the day, they made the movie about Jake. The book series is about Roland.
Well, there you go. I mean, when you change the main character's perspective or who it is,
immediately,
you shift the entire thing.
Right.
And
so.
I assume they wanted to start a franchise around
they were
a little
just
kid or something. But
well, they were worried because at the end of The Gunslinger, spoiler alert, Roland lets Jake die.
Dick move. Lets the kid die?
It's not because as Jake lets go, he goes, "There are other worlds than these," and Jake does come back. So
nice.
It's great book, great books. But all right.
So the next one on the ones that were unsuccessful, we have Dune, 1984, David Lynch's Dune, and not to be confused with the one that's coming up from Denis Villeneuve and with Timothée Chalamet and Josh Brolin and Rebecca Ferguson and the fantastic cast that's coming up supposedly this December. Dune was another one along the same boat, and it's such a large property that has such big ideas and philosophies and just so many concepts behind it that are larger than life, and whether that's politics or theology or whatever you have. And the story enough is simple. There's this planet Arrakis that has the spice melange, which is what everyone needs to survive. Only one planet in the universe has it, so there's obviously a fight for control over that one planet, right? Simple enough, and there's the prince who's defending it and everything. So the idea itself is not complicated, but it's the density of the book that makes it so difficult to adapt in pulling all the right things and culling the right ideas and emotions from it. And that's why they've been trying to remake it for so long, and that's why it's finally coming out with Denis Villeneuve, who's a very cerebral filmmaker who did Arrival and Sicario and Prisoners and things of that nature. So it should be excellent.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he's a guy who he understands effects and psychology of characters and things like that. But yeah, so in Dune, this one was done by David Lynch, which is the guy who did Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet, and is a very surrealist filmmaker. So not only is he not the most commercial guy in the world, but you're also giving him this insanely complex piece of material to put his own crazy stamp on. As you saw in that clip, it's just like borderline bizarre. And granted, it was the mid '80s, but it's just pretty comically panned as like that's just a weird one that they got some of the stuff from the book right, but it's just kind of
it's shitty Star Wars.
And,
it's shitty Star Wars.
And I think you could tell just from that 10-second clip, you're like, that just looks
it's just
terrible.
Shitty Star Wars.
Terrible.
It's so bad.
Yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed for the next one with the fantastic cast and a great director. I think it's actually going to be something really cool if it stays in its release slot in December, which I don't think it will because Wonder Woman just pushed to December. So I feel like Dune is going to move. But and then Josh, you wanted this one in here, and it's a movie that I loved an amazing amount when it came out when I was in like second grade or whatever. But why don't you take this one?
You mean
take this one?
The book.
The book.
Captain
take
Underpants is a series of childhood books, or well, I guess preteen books, where basically these two, Harold and the other one's name is escaping my brain right now, turn their principal into the superhero Captain Underpants, which is a fictional character they created. This movie had all the makings of badass. Kevin Hart, Thomas Middleditch, Ed Helms, and Nick Kroll all star in this movie. Stop me when you think this movie's gonna suck. The animation looks great. It is spot on from the jacket cover. As you can see, that's them. That's them. They nailed it. It's just not funny. It's a book based on comedy and fun and childhood hijinks. You know, the two kids pull a bunch of pranks, yada, yada, yada. Professor Poopy Pants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets is the sequel. I mean, there's a bunch of awesome shit that should have happened here, and it was a flop. It was just a flop. And I feel bad because the book's awesome, and they nailed the cast, they nailed the animation, but it's just not funny.
Yeah, very beloved series that's gone on extensively. There are many sequels in that series, and
now
there are no
an
movie
offspring
sequels.
from it as well.
What's the offspring?
Hang on.
What do you mean? There's like a spin-off?
Just like others of that of Dave Pickley's this little dog character here. Dogman, Cat Kid, all sorts of different spin-offs have happened from that. So
yeah, so unfortunately that was a miss, and I think, pretty critically and commercially not so successful with a lot of people who loved.
Man, the cast is stacked though. Why did that not hit? What
I
happened?
love Ed Helms as the Captain Underpants role. Like, when I hear him in the trailer, I don't dig it all that much. But I think, do you think that when you have a voice actor or an actor do voice work, when it's someone who's so well known as an actor, that makes it hard to get into it? Like
Chris Pratt Lego Movie.
Yeah, or like Kevin Hart in this one, or Chris Rock in Madagascar, or whatever. Like, does that ever take you out of it? Because like this one, when I hear Kevin Hart and Ed Helms, I'm just like, this feels so weird for them.
I think I understand that, and I think unless you lean into it the way Big Mouth does from Netflix, Nick Kroll leans in the fact that Maya Rudolph is a hormone monster. Like, he leans into it by having her say ridiculous fucking shit, right? Whereas this feels like they kind of changed the characters a little bit to better base off of who Thomas Middleditch is in Silicon Valley and who Kevin Hart is as a personality. Yeah, I mean, I was really excited to see this movie. I saw it in theater. I sat amongst children. Even the children weren't laughing. The children did not laugh at fart and poop jokes. That's a bad movie.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so those are some of the worser ones, right? We did the success stories, and then we did some of the not so successful ones.
Sure.
Do we need to take a commercial break?
Nope, we can do the commercial break before overrated.
Let's keep rolling. Okay, and now we're going into the what the hell is going on in those adaptations section. And it's not that these are necessarily bad movies, but they are just weird ones that didn't connect for whatever reason. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is Cloud Atlas, which is a 3-hour movie from the Wachowskis, who did the Matrix movie. And I remember seeing this at midnight when it came out like 10 years ago, and that was definitely a mistake because it's so long and
that was a mistake.
Hard to follow. Though it's actually, but I was reading about it in prep for this. The book is so cool because it's 6 different stories set across 6 different timelines, but they all sort of connect to each other. And the way the book does it is it goes from one to the next, from like the 1800s until the future. So it goes like section here, section here, section here, section here, but it like cliffhangers all of them, and it leaves you in the middle of a big scene and then goes to the next one. And then when you get to the end of the 6, it starts going backwards and wrapping up the stories. So it's really weird because it's almost Tenet-esque or like Christopher Nolan-esque. It's like you progress through each 6 of these stories set in different times, and then you leave in the middle of a big scene, and then you reverse order close the stories out. So it's actually a really cool concept, and there's like common threads between each one. Like a journal one guy writes in the 1800s becomes a journal someone in the 70s finds and is reading, and like that's how they're all threaded together. Plus, it's a fantastic cast. I mean, Halle Berry and Tom Hanks and Ben Whishaw and Jim Broadbent. And what's interesting,
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe is not in this movie.
Yeah, he was.
He's not in this movie.
Who am I thinking of?
But what's interesting is that these ensemble casts play different characters in every new vignette. So it's like the book, each character is a reincarnation of another. Like, it's all about reincarnation. But this one actually goes a step further and has literally the same actors playing different characters in each storyline, right? So you have Ben Whishaw plays 6 different characters. Tom Hanks plays 6 different characters. So it's
I think I'm thinking of Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving plays Elrond and Mr. Smith from The Matrix.
That guy.
That's Tom Hanks.
No, this guy?
That's Tom Hanks right there.
Oh,
That's
son of a
futuristic
bitch.
Hawaiian
Just-
Tom Hanks, yeah.
Just Tom
But
Hanks.
yeah, so but it's a
Fuck you,
very
Tom Hanks.
it's a very complicated book to translate to the screen because narratively how it's written in forms of this like mirrored version of itself. And you have 6 different timelines with people playing different characters. So it's just very complex. It's hard to visually wrap your head around. And it was a very polarizing movie. The Wachowskis, to their credit, did their best. I mean, they created 6 timelines, all different characters being played by the same people. And I would really love to go back and rewatch this one. But it was a bomb of a movie. It was very expensive and didn't do any business because it's like, how do you market a movie that has 6 different timelines that are not really well connected to each other, and you have Tom Hanks playing 6 different characters? Like it's a very complicated movie to market and advertise.
It's American Horror Story, but all the seasons jammed into 3 hours.
That's a fantastic way to describe it.
Yeah.
That's actually exactly what it is. Yes.
That can be confusing.
Yeah. So it's some people love the movie for the artistic ambition of it, and some people just like me did not get into it at all because I was like, what the fuck is going on here? It's so hard to follow, but
I own it digitally if you want to watch it again.
I do want to watch it again. But it's like the 3-hour runtime.
Nah, what? Just split it up.
But yeah, so definitely not saying it's necessarily a bad movie. Very polarizing, and it's just such a hard one that they kind of didn't capture people with in
Sure.
the translation there.
Sure.
Next we did the Lord of the Rings in the success
We
version.
have to talk about this.
So of course we have to go.
I like to
The
ignore
Hobbit.
it like the 7th season of Scrubs. You just forget
pretend like
that it
didn't happen.
exists.
Yeah, now The Hobbit is interesting. I put The Hobbit in the what the hell was going on section instead of the bad, unsuccessful section. But do you want to talk about it first, and then I'll give my reasoning why?
Okay, so out of the Lord of the Rings books, The Hobbit's the best. All right, let's just get it out of the way now. It's the best. There's the most action in it. There's the dragon, and there's all sorts of really fun things that happen in The Hobbit. The introduction of Gollum, the rings, everything. Gandalf is a bigger part of The Hobbit. If you're a big Gandalf guy, it's awesome. It's the book is amazing. This movie, they stretched it into 3 parts. After Peter Jackson was like, I'm done fucking doing Lord of the Rings movies. They're like, no, you're not. You're under contract. You're doing The Hobbit. Oh, and by the way, it's not 1 movie. It's now 3 because, I don't know, money. And it sucked. He didn't care. There's dance sequences in it. It's all bad. It's all
Hold
fucking
on.
bad.
I don't see. This is why I didn't put it in the bad section because of this reason. I don't think that they're necessarily bad. My thing is that
Ugh.
you have the book, which is 176 pages or whatever it is, and you stretch that out into 8 hours of movie, which is just like unbelievably ridiculous. Usually
Right.
it's the other way around.
They
You have to
took out
condense
pieces
it.
of Lord of the Rings to make it better,
Yeah.
and in The Hobbit they added shit to make it worse.
It's so unheard of for a book to like need to fill space instead
Right.
of having to condense it down.
Right.
Right. So this one was just like they put so much into it. It's kind of like what the like these crazy sequences, like the Battle of the 5 Armies and the lake town of it all is like kind of weird. I'm not really into the whole lake town thing, which is the whole fucking like second act of the second movie until the end of the movie, and then. Yeah, the Battle of the 5 Armies, I'm pretty sure, is entirely made up for the movie. Like,
Yeah.
as cool as it was, I guess. Like, so it's just, I did enjoy being back in the Lord of the Rings world.
Yes.
And
Gandalf,
yes, the first,
Legolas, you
of
get the
course.
feels.
You get
get
some
the
new
feels.
characters
Right.
like Thorin Oakenshield, and Sauron's not as cool in this one, but Gandalf's there in Saruman and Galadriel and all those great characters. So I enjoyed going back into the world. It's like Fantastic Beasts, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy being back in the world, but it's just like a weird watered down side
Right.
version.
It's diet Lord of the Rings. Just like
Yes.
Fantastic Beasts is diet Harry Potter.
Here's a question for you. A lot of people's problem with the first Hobbit movie,
The dance sequence.
Is it Unfinished Journey, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know what dance sequence you're talking about.
When they first show up at his house.
Oh, they're just like throwing the plates and stuff?
Yeah.
Dwarves sing. That's a part of the book.
I
Like,
know
dwarves
they
like to
sing, but like it was like 10 minutes. Why did it need to be 10 minutes?
Well, let me ask you this. A lot of people's problem with an Unfinished Journey, the very first Hobbit movie, is that it's just so much exposition and there's so little action. It's just all set up, right?
Which is, I mean,
And
that's
then-
the way Fellowship was.
I don't have a problem with that. And then the second one obviously gets heavier into the action with Smaug and Lake Town, and then the third one is pretty much all action.
Yeah.
So if there hadn't been so much exposition in the first one, do you think people would have hated it as much? Because honestly, like, I do like these movies, but, you know, in terms of adapting the book, they just put so much more extra in, which I think is the real, like, what the hell is going on with all these other characters and things? Like, it's cool to see Radagast, and I like all the dwarves and everything, but I think it's just people turned on the first one because it was too slow moving for them.
I like the first one because we spend a lot of time in the Shire, which is somewhere we do not spend a lot of time in the original trilogy. And it is somewhere that, to me, if you're like, all right, Josh, you get to pick one Lord of the Rings place to visit, it would be the Shire.
That would be your one place?
That would be my one place.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Even though I hate the Hobbits through the books, I'm like, I don't care what the Hobbits are doing because basically they're just like hiding the entire time, really. I would love to visit the Shire. It looks beautiful.
Go to New Zealand.
The people seem nice, like the whole 9 yards. It's Ireland, basically.
No, it's New Zealand. They have,
I know,
you
but
can
like
walk through the Shire.
But what I understand is that like it's basically Ireland.
I have not been.
Okay.
But sure.
So anyway,
Very green. People love to drink.
very green. So to me, I enjoy that part of it, but again, I think you're probably spot on there. That is too much exposition. And the fucking singing and the dancing, just like I know it's part of it, but it's not part of it in the same. Like,
I think
Gimli never sings.
The villains are not so great. You have like the one orc with the hook hand and like the necromancer.
Yeah,
like Sauron
yeah.
light. I mean, it's
Sauron, and you know, like there's no fucking tower with a big eye, like darting around, like we're gonna fuck some shit up if this thing sees us.
When you compare it to Lord of the Rings, it's just like that's the pinnacle of it all, and this is like the junior. This is like the AA league compared.
Which
to
is
the
really
majors.
funny because like the book does not feel that way.
That's interesting.
The book feels like the prequel, but the book was written before Lord of the Rings.
Right.
So I don't know.
So would you put this in the bad category or just the weird?
I hate this. I hate it. I hate it because
Loyalist.
The Hobbit was like when I was wee little kid and my dad would tuck me in at night, he read The Hobbit to me.
Okay.
So you can't fuck up The Hobbit.
Gotcha. No. But is it accurate in terms of the book Hobbit? Like they just put all this extra shit in it? Because I haven't read it, so I mean I feel like they would have had to keep everything.
They hit the beats.
How can you expand a 178-page book into 9 hours of movies and not include literally everything?
Can we talk about that for a second? So
Yes.
I think what we need to tell people, and you and I know this just in the back of our heads, for every 1 page written, that is 10 minutes of screen time.
No, 1 minute is what they say.
Wait, what?
1 minute of screen time.
What are you talking about?
Well, like if a script is 100 pages, then 100 minutes. You know. One
Okay.
page is
all right.
1 minute.
So
that's not gospel, but that's what they teach you.
Okay, so then this movie should have been 2 hours.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 hours.
Right.
Because it's I think 180.
Right.
So we'll say 3 hours.
Okay. So to turn it into 2.5 hour movies, you can kind of understand where they just started adding shit.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like how do you do that?
Yeah, it's just not
okay.
good. But
all right, well that's The Hobbit, and it's hate it or love it or weirded out by it. That's in our miss.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're in the sort of like what the hell is going on there category. And next we have a movie that I actually quite enjoy, and it's the 2013 Gatsby with honestly a fucking great cast. It's Leo and Tobey Maguire and Elizabeth Debicki in her first role before she blew up with Widows and Tenet and those things, and Joel Edgerton, Isla Fisher. I love the poster for Gatsby, but I think this Gatsby did a great job of. I mean, it's very loyal to the book. Let's say that right away. It captures everything about the book. But Baz Luhrmann is just a very interesting director visually. Like he's a little wonkier in his visual style. He definitely goes over the top. He's eccentric in his visuals, and people either love that or hate that. And I think in this Gatsby, it created not a weird feeling, but there's certainly. And he did this with Moulin Rouge, and he's done this in other of his movies that are very visual movies, where it's a little too over the top, and there's too many crazy like push-ins and like goofy looking characters, and like he goes a little too eccentric sometimes. Baz Luhrmann does.
I do. I think the thing that sticks out to this movie to me is I think that a lot of people really love the idea of that era in time, which I'm gonna fuck up.
The
I'm
Jazz
gonna say,
Age, yeah, in the 20s.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Roaring 20s, right? They like the suits. They like the
flapper
prohibition, and
Yep.
it's all fucking cool, right? And so I think he went too far towards like Vegas and not enough like Peaky Blinders.
It's interesting because he tried to modernize it by like Jay-Z helped with the soundtrack. So like when they're driving through 20s New York City, it's like Jay-Z songs or those types of that type of music. So it's like I don't want to say it's bad, but it's certainly not what people think about that era.
If it was a Vegas casino,
yeah.
If the 20s were a Vegas casino, it would be The Great Gatsby movie.
Yeah.
Instead of if the 20s were told on screen as they were, it would be Peaky Blinders.
Right. And so, and again, like it's completely faithful to the book, and I think the characters are fantastic, the costumes and the acting, everything is great.
Great cast.
Insane
cast.
It's more the visual style of Baz Luhrmann is a turnoff for a lot of people, and this movie didn't do a ton of business. I mean, it did fairly well, but overall it cost a ton, so it didn't do as much as they would have liked. And I haven't seen the one in the 70s where Redford played Gatsby, but I feel like that one might capture that more so.
I bet it does.
Than
I really
this
do.
one, which has the crystal clear look and the bumpin' hip hop soundtrack and everything like that. So
and I feel bad because Moulin Rouge is great.
Sure.
Moulin Rouge is fucking awesome.
I love Moulin Rouge.
Yeah,
but it
really
has like
good.
a fantasy element to it,
right?
Which this also includes. It has certain things that take you out of the element a little bit. So
I agree.
It was accurate, but also just sort of like, those are weird choices.
Yeah. The final one.
I would save the weirdest for last. And what's funny is like when I was dividing up these categories, this was the very first one that I'm like, that has to be number one. In terms of like, what the hell is going on there? This is the Mike Myers special, Austin Powers in a bow tie. This is the Cat in the Hat, the live action Cat in the Hat. I mean, it's just. I don't really know what to say about it other than just like look at it and be like,
what is happening here?
Yes, like you have the classic book which every single person in the world has read. They turn it into this movie which is live action. It's not an actual animation movie. And I'll say this, I think The Grinch with Jim Carrey is great.
Brilliant.
And I think everything about that is fantastic, and that captures
fucking amazing.
The book wonderfully.
Yes.
But whatever magic that they had going on with the Grinch was not evident in this movie. I mean, it's just bizarre is what I feel like this is.
I would say that The Grinch is Jim Carrey's best performance in a movie.
No.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Ace Ventura?
Nope, better.
What? Wow. I think he's fantastic.
There's no way I could go.
I think he's amazing.
Self-loathing, yelling at myself. I'm booked.
He's the only person in the world that could have done that.
Only person.
The only one.
And he nails it.
Everything about that movie is great. But this one just tried to do that and was a complete and total miss. Like, just watching the trailer for it, I'm like, this is just so fucking weird. Like, whether it's, I'll give them credit for how they tried to bring it to life in terms of the set deck and the production design and the costumes and the
looks good.
Things. Yeah, it looks interesting, but it's just, I feel like it's just too out there for such a basic, wonderfully fantastical type of kid story. Like it.
Well, and the Cat in the Hat. This is We're going to talk some deep shit about Dr. Seuss today, kids. Buckle up. The Cat in the Hat is not sarcastic. He's not mean. He's not goofy. He's very just candid. He's like, oh, yeah, well, you know what? Maybe you guys need to loosen up. And I don't think Mike Myers can pull that off.
I mean, this was just Mike Myers being Mike Myers.
Right.
Like, he has one sort of character, and that's Austin Powers. This is like Austin Powers-y Mike Myers.
Can we for a second, though? Because, like, Mike Myers is a giant shape of our movie-going experience between Wayne's World and Austin Powers.
I love Mike Myers.
Like, you and I still go, wait a tick. Like, and nobody knows what we're talking about.
We threw out a Wayne's World reference last week.
Yes,
I'm the leprechaun. Like, it's still there.
He's our guy.
Yeah.
This and the Love Guru were not it, though.
The Love Guru, if you watch, it's actually, like, the first 20 minutes of that movie are hilarious. Like,
it's just because there's hockey in it.
But it just pisses me off that he's with Jessica Alba in that movie. It really makes me angry.
But yeah, man, this wasn't it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it probably has to do with Mike Myers' choices. And I think if it was animated, this movie works with the voice cast and everything.
Well, yeah, because Horton Hears a Who with Steve Carell wasn't bad.
The Lorax is another one. Like these are ones that were more.
Was there a Yertle the Turtle adaptation?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because Yertle the Turtle is fucking sweet.
But those were CGI movies. This was actual live action.
Right.
So I think that's the difference.
Well, and it's not too far off the heels of Shrek, where he's incredible as Shrek, right? And Shrek was a big box office hit.
I need to look up the year for The Cat in the Hat.
Let me look it up for you.
Yeah, keep speaking. Because the Grinch was The Cat in the Hat. There it is, 2003, right? And
so Shrek's 01, I think.
That sounds right for the first Shrek. Yeah, 2001. Good job, good memory. And then, but the Grinch was after.
Dude, I will never forget the day I saw Shrek in theaters. I remember leaving that going
Genius.
like, "There's my favorite movie."
You know, well, Shrek
there it was.
Shrek does what SpongeBob does so well, where it makes adults love it, even though it's for kids, right? So yeah, Shrek's
on Sunday. I played the Robin Hood clip for Derek when we were sitting in the studio setting it up.
Yeah, there's a nice musical moment for you.
Yeah.
No dwarf
yes,
in that one.
Yes, that's how you do a music break. Everyone, it's not fucking.
Kitchen,
that's what she wants, or it's none of that.
Yeah.
Don't do it unless you can do it exactly like Shrek. I take from the rich and I give to the needy, but he's not greedy. It's so good. Damn, I'm good. Monsieur Hood, break it down.
Love Shrek.
Fucking good.
Yeah. But yeah, Cat in the Hat is just the epitome of like, what the hell is this weird nonsense that is on screen right now? So
it was bad.
So, all right. So there's our good, our bad, and the ugly, so to speak, on those ones. Before we get into overrated, underrated, do you have any that you would like to give honorable mentions to? I do not.
I would like to take a commercial break.
Okay.
And I would like you to toss the commercial as Mike Myers in Austin Powers.
Commercial, baby, yeah.
That was terrible.
Let's dive right into sports, as I have strong opinions on that. Which college team could beat a professional team in the same sport right now?
Okay.
There is not a single answer that is better than the LSU Tigers defeating the Cincinnati Bengals.
Even if I know the pitch that's coming, every other part of me is still normal.
That's why it's frustrating for me, Greg.
It's like okay, if I know what something is coming, I know ahead of time, I still have to be able to do the action to get the result that I need.
Okay, so they won 3 games in 10 years with 3 rebuilds.
I don't lose at arguments.
Especially about fast food, so yeah.
You will never walk alone. Guess what? Now you will. Coronavirus.
I barely touch my girlfriend's cat. The most I'd be willing to do is like just kind of put my finger on its forehead and just like.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with us is Alex Kazor from Steelers Depot.
We are live with Ryan Smith, professional cornhole player in the ACL. Ryan,
what all franchises were you able to work with in the NHL?
With Phoenix, Carolina, and Detroit.
No. So here is Moorhead's ranking. Moorhead is my cousin. He is the rank king.
Higher
Top 10 extra Power Rangers.
Whoa.
Okay.
This is the top 10 emo songs of the 2000s.
There's only one correct answer for number 1. Why is F is for Family better than Futurama when Futurama is like Star Wars for potheads? Like
I know. I think
we have one or two that are mad in the chat.
You're welcome for that.
Okay, we're gonna get banned.
Hysterical.
We're back.
Josh is on his third Canada Dry and whiskey, by the way.
No,
So
it's the same whiskey from the second one.
Oh, okay.
Third
just-
Canada Dry because I put too much whiskey in it.
You have a Canada Dry problem, my friend. I have a number that you can call. You have a drinking problem. With Canada Dry.
Canada Dry.
Okay, so again, books to movies. We talked about what makes them great, what makes them work, and what doesn't. We went through the good, we went through the bad, we went through the what the hell's going on with those ones.
Please don't say ugly. I don't want to think about that movie.
We gotta keep getting away from that. Yeah. we gotta stop with the good and the bad and the ugly. But I feel like since we've watched it on this show, like now it's just I'm saying it more and more.
Yeah. Now that you've seen the shit, you're like, no, it was shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so before we get into our favorite section, overrated, underrated for adaptations, do you have any honorable mentions that I did not mention in the show that you would like to talk about? In terms of,
so I think
good or bad?
I think the first one we need to talk about is Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Because Michael Crichton's book is and Jurassic Park the movie is right? It's maybe Spielberg's best. That's my opinion, not necessarily everybody's.
I don't think too many people would fight you on that.
And I think that there's parts of the Spielberg or the Michael Crichton book that don't make it into Jurassic Park the movie, maybe for the better, but I think would be really interesting to put back into it.
Well, can you give me an example? Because I have not read the book.
Yeah, so okay, there's a bunch of shit, but like one of the things is the fencing system. It kind of plays a key point in the movies, right? The kid grabs onto it, and he falls off, right?
Okay.
But the fencing system is actually really complicated in the books, and like where it allows certain dinosaurs to roam and where it doesn't allow other dinosaurs to roam. And it's also kind of like plays another key part into tracking dinosaurs, okay? So they all have like trackers embedded into them, right? And they're all female. That's supposed to be why they can't breed, right? So about midway through the book, when the raptors are loose, they realize that actually there's 12 raptors when there were only 6. Which is like that would be a great point in the movie, right? When you're like, oh fuck. Not only are the raptors loose, not only are they the smartest things on this island, but now there's more of them than we anticipated. That's pretty wild. The guy with the hat, who's like clever girl, he's a bigger part in the book, because he kind of like hunts them and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I also don't believe the kids are in the book, which is really an interesting decision from Spielberg. But we know that Spielberg loves to have kids in his movies because he thinks it helps, tell the stories better and humanize
I mean,
everything.
Jurassic World would not work without Lex and Tim at all.
Right.
I mean, it's just an undeniable fact.
Yes.
So.
And Jeff Goldblum's character dies when the T-Rex gets loose.
Nice.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, we're gonna keep Jeff Goldblum.
They're like, it's fucking Jeff
Kill
Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum off.
This guy's a stud. We're gonna let him go.
Insane?
Yeah.
Well, then now he's in the new one back again with
Right.
Sam Neill and the
Right.
original
Nature
cast.
finds a way. So I think that needs to be just mentioned.
Sure.
And as one of the rare occasions where the movie's better than the book. I think it's something that's kind of cool.
Fair.
Second one is kind of weird because it's a biography and it's a biopic, is Jobs.
Are you talking about the Ashton Kutcher Jobs
No.
or the Seth Rogen Jobs?
Seth Rogen Jobs.
The Danny Boyle, Michael
Yes.
Fassbender, Kate Winslet Jobs.
Very good Jobs. Steve Jobs, the book, I worked at Apple for 4 years, and Steve Jobs was a profound influence on my life at pretty much right when I was graduating college. I really started to get into Apple and understanding the brilliance of Apple. And so he, as a person, really influenced me on how I think about things and try to be creative. And so when the book came out, I was all about the book. I don't read, spoiler alert, but I did the audiobook and loved it. And then when I watched both movies, the biopic and then the cinematic version really heroized him in a way that I did not think was appropriate.
Wait,
because
which one are you talking about?
Ashton Kutcher's.
Okay.
I don't think was good because it heroized him. And I think even Steve Jobs would tell you he's not a hero. And the people around him would certainly tell you that he is not a hero. Whereas in Seth Rogen's version, the way he alienates people, the way he's like pushing off his wife and his daughter, saying that Lisa's not my kid.
That was very messed up, like in the movie. I'm just like,
but that's real.
Yeah,
it's called the perception bubble, where Steve Jobs. This is written about in the book, but Steve Jobs creates a perception bubble where as long as you're looking and chugging along in the same direction as him, he will empower you to move mountains, to create things that you didn't think you were possible of, because he so instinctually and vividly and intensely believes in you, okay? So as long as you play inside of his bubble, you're good to go. But if you're an outside force trying to penetrate his bubble or pop the bubble, he will do everything to kill and crush you to keep his bubble safe. And one of the realistic things that came from that is Pixar, to tie it back to what we do and what we talk about. Steve Jobs actually created Pixar.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty crazy little tie-in.
One of the founders.
Yeah, but so Jobs, the book, and the Michael Fassbender version, fucking incredible. Don't watch the Ashton Kutcher version. It sucks. And Jurassic Park. Those are my two honorable mentions.
Nice. Both excellent choices.
Do you have any? There's one behind you that I'm surprised you left off this list.
Catch Me If You Can or Inferno?
Inferno.
Dan Brown's Inferno. Yeah, again, tonight's show we were focusing more on the highest highs and then just like the lowest ones that didn't work. Like we didn't throw Aragon in there, which is a notorious bomb and things like that. But we were focusing on sort of the peaks of them all. I certainly considered the Da Vinci Code and the Dan Brown series. I think the books are
Da Vinci
fantastic,
Code was a blockbuster.
It made a ton of money. It made, I think, $750 worldwide, but it was critically panned. A lot of people just did not like it, and that's why the drop-off between that and Angels and Demons and Inferno is so large. The Dan Brown books are so incredible, and they're very beloved by the world over, and then the movies just did not really translate very well. So I did think about the Da Vinci Code, but it's not so bad that it would be. Because I honestly, I love the movie very much. I think it's very faithful to the book. And a lot of people didn't like how dense and slogging it was to get through all the complexities of it. But I quite enjoyed it, and I thought they did a great job with it. But, yeah, a lot of people did not. And then certainly Catch Me If You Can is an interesting one, which is it's interesting in how different the book actually is from the movie. Because the book sort of romanticizes everything about Leo's journey of being a teenager who impersonates a pilot and a lawyer and a doctor and all that stuff, and while writing counterfeit checks. And Spielberg directed with Tom Hanks, and if you haven't seen it, it's phenomenal. But the book is much more less so. It's not as romantic. It certainly doesn't paint him out to be like a hero like you were talking about with Jobs. It's just like a kid who was able to get away with this stuff, luckily, and it's certainly not nearly as high flying and cool and wonderful as the movie is. But
there are two more that came to the top of my brain, and I've not read either book, so we can feel free to move on. But Into the Wild and Wild. Have you read either of those books or seen the movies?
I have not. I mean, both movies are very well received.
Right.
Both based on true stories of people who went on, like self-explorations in the wild. It's interesting. They're finally taking the Into the Wild bus out of where it is.
They had to.
Because so many people were dying.
This is a big deal in my world.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
Why were you trying to go up there?
I was not, but you may not know this if you're a viewer, but my wife and I are big outdoors people. We spend a lot of our free time at camps and traveling the country. We are on the quest to visit all 59 national parks. Like, this is what we do for fun. This is our vacation time. And the Into the Wild bus was so polarizing that they had to pull it out because people felt drawn to it and would actually die trying to reach it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult location up in the Alaskan wilderness. Not only you have like the currents
right.
of the rivers, you have the temperatures, you have the scarcity of food and all those things that Christopher whatever his last name is, I'm blanking on at the moment, went up there and he died, and that it became the movie, the Sean Penn movie with Emile Hirsch. But and then the Wild movie, of course, with Reese Witherspoon and Jean-Marc Vallée directed in 2014 was another more optimistic version. But yeah, I have not read either book, but both are excellent movies. I will say that.
Yeah. All right. You want to do overrated and underrated?
I love overrated, underrated. Yes. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And again, these are all adaptations. You know what's interesting? There's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder, which people know more
Incredible.
of, which is just
Perfect.
Insanely fun. But the Tim Burton one is actually the far more accurate of the two. I mean, it's definitely darker, and like the singing is more accurate in terms of the songs and things like that. In the end, like the first one doesn't show the kids at the end, whereas Tim Burton's one does show them as they're walking out, and the one girl's covered in salt or in like garbage, and then Mike TV has been like taffy pulled to he's 10 feet high and all that stuff. So the Tim Burton one's actually far more accurate, but it's also Tim Burton. So it's like, you know, his distinct visual uniqueness and Johnny Depp's character-iness. So overrated, underrated for this one and the original.
So this one splits my household.
Interesting. I bet Anna loves it.
I know. My mom and I love Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory.
Sure.
My brother loves Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Now, he has read the book. My mom and I have not. And that is, I do believe, why he loves it, because he thinks Johnny Depp's portrayal of Willy Wonka is spot on. Mm-hmm. I would say Willy Wonka is perfectly rated. It's a classic. It's Gene Wilder, maybe at his best, and it's a brilliant movie. I would say Charlie and Chocolate Factory underrated. It's not my favorite Burton flick, but I think it's better than most people give it credit for. And I think had he not gone on the weird like Alice in Wonderland and like some other fucking weird shit after that, I think it would get more praise. But because then he seemed to dive deeper and deeper into these weird like book adaptations, it kind of gets roped in with that.
You know, this was like at the height of Burton and Depp's collaborative nature with each other, you know. So I feel like this was really catching both of them at their height of their powers.
Sure.
And together, doing it together.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was before Dark Shadows and, like you said, Alice in Wonderland and some movies that they did which did not work out. So
right.
I feel like it's pretty fairly rated. It did good money at the box office and was, you know, both of them doing what they were doing best at the time. So I'd say Charlie and Chocolate Factory is pretty fairly rated.
Sure.
The Shining, which Josh has not seen, and it kills me.
But I've read the book.
And that's interesting because I have not read the book. I've only seen the movie, which is unbelievable.
So is the book.
Yeah, but they're I don't know if vastly different is the right word. They are different, for sure.
Right.
And we're going to watch The Shining this October.
Yes.
Otherwise, I will never be your friend anymore. So we're definitely going to watch it.
My friend for 20 years. Don't act like that's going to change.
It will stop over The Shining. I swear to God. As God is my witness. But no, yeah, the movie is incredible, and it stays with you. It's so brilliant because here's what I thought. I saw it 2 years ago at Amblin. We screened it after work one night, and I thought that it was going to be like terrifying, like horror film. But it's completely psychological.
Yeah.
And it's not even like there's not a ton of blood and guts, but it's just it messes with your mind so much.
Doesn't blood pour out of an elevator?
At the end, like it gets a little bloody, but you know, it's so much the setup of just going slowly crazy in this isolated, remote location, and it's you know Jack Nicholson going crazy with his family there, and it's just like the little things Kubrick does, which I won't spoil for you yet, but he's just such a master craftsman with filmmaking that he just does these little things that you don't realize are creeping in the back of your mind until you think about them later. Like,
so
wow,
I want to replay the Dark Tower clip here, because I want you to take notice when the earthquake happens, what is sitting on that guy's shelf. Did you catch it?
Was that a picture of the Overlook?
It was a picture of the Overlook.
Oh boy, nice Stephen King reference.
So Stephen King famously, everything is on the back of this giant turtle. It's this corresponding world. Everything's linked, right? So Pennywise exists in the same universe. The Shining exists. Same universe as Carrie, Cujo, trucks, you name it. Okay. So the movie The Dark Tower is meant to better tie together this. And actually, through the Dark Tower series, we visit a number of these worlds throughout it, right? There's a very famous scene in both the movie and the series where you see a giant Pennywise, like, carnival banner, basically, still in structure. So Dr. Sleep is one of the main characters of this, who's a main character in The Shining, and then there's a sequel, or is the prequel to The Shining, and it is believed that Dr. Sleep is actually who Jake is talking to in that movie. So the book's super sweet. I'll be excited to watch the movie because I think very highly of Kubrick and, of course, fucking Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I mean, this may be Kubrick's best.
Right.
2001, obviously, but I personally, it's just been so powerful an experience that it stayed with me this whole time. And
Justin,
incredible.
It's like wannabe Harry Potter, wannabe Narnia. But the book series came out when we were kids, and it was super fucking awesome when it was coming on.
Yeah, and they've since done the Netflix version with Neil Patrick Harris, which I believe is pretty well reviewed and pretty highly rated. Actually, if I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, it's the Netflix version is very well received. The movie was interesting. They took the first 3 books in the series: The Bad Beginning, The Reptile Room, and the something with a wide window, I think. And they combined them all into one movie, and it has a fantastic cast. Jim Carrey is Count Olaf, and Meryl Streep is in it, and the kids are unknowns at the time, but they, you know what, I think that this movie actually is underrated. I think it moved through the books very quickly because it put 3 books into one movie, but the
wide window, you were right.
It was faithful to the books, and I loved this book series, until I lost track of it towards the end. But I love the book series, and I think all of the kids were fantastically done. There was a lot of very intricate makeup and costuming that went into the movie. I think it's underrated. It didn't do a ton of business, so they didn't go forward with sequels, but it's actually, in terms of adaptations, pretty darn good.
I did not see the movie, read, I think, up to the 3rd book. Incredible idea behind it, so I would be interested to go back and revisit all of it from start to finish here. But
yeah, underrated.
All right.
Breakfast at Tiffany's, which
one of the best movies ever.
And I just recently read the book by Truman Capote and watched the movie in this past year, so this is a newer one for me. And I had never understood the fascination with, Holly Golightly, other than the image of her, in the dress with the thing was just like a glamorous image that a lot of people, females in particular, just identified with as being the height of like fabulous and glamorous and things like that, and womanhood. And having seen it now, I feel like I understand it a little bit, although it's not as glamorous as you would think. I mean, it's the movie is incredibly faithful to the book. The only difference is that the movie has a happy ending where the two of them get together, and the book does not, although they do remain friends. But it's so interesting in that it's just not. It wasn't quite what I expected in terms of like the grandiosity of it. It's more from Paul's perspective, and he's sort of just this guy trying to make it in New York, and she lives the mysterious girl across the hall. But there's not like big fancy dinners or anything like that. Like she's a pretend person, right? So it's very interesting. But I don't know if it's not underrated, but certainly I think it's fairly rated, I would say.
I think it's one of the best movies ever. Audrey Hepburn is, when you think of leading lady, when you think of class, you're hard pressed to find a better example. And I think she's just electric in this movie. I've watched this movie a number of times, and I love this movie. I've never read the book, but
yeah, it's they're basically similar except the ending. So the Hunger Games franchise, it's I think if they would have made it rated R, it would have been great.
Because the books are rated R.
Very much so.
Very much so. PETA and Kat get it on a lot.
Well, I mean, not that. I'm thinking more of the violence, the brutality and the
that
nature
too,
of the kills and everything.
but
I don't think there's any blood in the first
I feel like they don't go deep enough into her actual love triangle that's happening.
Yeah, I don't love that love triangle from the book either. Like the whole PETA and Gale, it felt like the author couldn't decide who it would be right for her to end up with. It's like she was technically with PETA because of the games, but she really wanted Gale, and then I believe ends up with PETA just because their history and everything. But it felt like...
Yeah, because Gale gets killed, doesn't he?
I don't remember. But it just
Gale
feels
gets
like there
killed.
was this weird, like, I can't figure out which way I want it to go.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I don't think I saw the second and third movie. I saw the first book, faithful to the...
Yes.
The movie is faithful to the book minus the violence.
Right.
Which is disappointing.
Right.
And I think like they made it the way they had to. But.
I think I saw all three. I definitely saw Girl on Fire because that's my favorite of the three books. Because
Catching Fire?
Or Catching
That's
Fire.
the
Because I love when they get thrown back in, they think it's over and
Right.
it's not. And you really get the depth of, like the goofy guy with the electricity and like all of them are... the champions going back in I think is really cool.
Right.
Don't remember much of the third book other
That's
than
because they get out of the arena, and then it
right.
becomes like them trying to overthrow the president and
it's less fun.
Take over Panem.
Right. But the first two are awesome, and I remember the first two movies being pretty good. I'd say accurately rated.
I think the first one, I think it's overrated. Like the series,
Could be.
The series kind of fell off critically and still did good money, but I feel like the first one everyone was all excited about.
Right. And it's
J Law coming out of
right
the woodwork, but
right.
I'm just disappointed in the first movie.
Yeah, and I think there's parts of it too where like I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, I got Jennifer Lawrence, who we know is my woman crush in Hollywood right now. So J Law's in it. I got Woody Harrelson, love Woody Harrelson. Who's the girl with the pink hair?
Elizabeth Banks.
Thank you, Elizabeth Banks in it. We love Elizabeth Banks, except for when she's lying to JD on Scrubs. And then Lenny Kravitz is in it.
Yep.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Liam Hemsworth, though, and Josh Hutcherson never really caught on.
No.
They're both still trying. But yeah, I think the first Hunger Games is overrated and the others are
That's fine.
appropriate.
I agree with most of that.
Forrest
is interesting.
Gump. Yeah, I mean, you have read the book or you have not?
I've not read the book, but who did the screenplay for Forrest Gump?
I can't remember.
Hang on a second.
But, I mean, obviously the movie is beloved, but the book, it's different than the book.
Eric Roth.
Oh, Eric Roth. Yeah, he's been around forever. Yep.
Well, and let me just pull up Eric Roth IMDb here, because there's going to be some shit you've heard
Roth
of before.
Is the champion.
Right.
Yeah.
Stars Born, The Insider, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Forrest Gump. He is the king of House of Cards. He is the king of taking a book and turning it into something. Munich, Ali, The Horse Whisperer,
Benjamin Button.
Fucking name it. He was a part of it. Also, the writer of Boner Dogs. For those of you who get that joke, I appreciate you. He makes this movie better than the book, from what I understand. The book seems to be taking slight at mentally challenged people and kind of just taking what could have, like, the story of Forrest Gump is, like, plausible. The book is not going to happen. Like, the book's impossible. So when Eli Roth read the book and was asked to turn it into a movie, he's like, sure, I'll give it a shot. And he made, I'm going to say this, probably one of the top 10 movies of all time.
It's not in your top 10.
It's not my top 10, but I would say in top 10 movies of all time.
Sure. I mean, everyone loves Forrest Gump. But you can't not fall in love with the movie.
Tom Hanks is brilliant.
Sure. But yeah, vastly different from the book, or different from the book, I should say.
Yes.
I will say the movie is accurately rated.
Accurately?
Yeah, because people love Forrest Gump, and I think that's fair. We're talking about the movie here.
I know, but I still feel like it could be underrated somehow.
What?
I still think it could.
Everyone loves. I mean, it's got the iconic lines. I mean,
it's so
many
good.
iconic lines.
It's so good. It's brilliant.
It's accurately rated.
Hi, Dan. He's waving on the fucking dock. Gets me every time.
Dan.
Lieutenant Dan.
I love you, Jenny.
Yeah, I love you, Jenny. All right.
It's accurately rated.
Ready Player One.
All right, yeah, this is our last one here. And Josh, you just watched this movie today.
I literally watched it today.
So let's get your hot take on it
So
real quick.
for when we're not reviewing a movie, I like to watch a movie the day of, just like in the background normally, to just get in the mood, right? So The Prestige, different things I've watched recently. Ready Player One, the movie, is a lot of fun.
Yes.
If you go into it looking for a fun This feels like my childhood wrapped up into a movie about video games. It's super awesome. I'm also watching it parallel to shit. No, I fucked up, dude. I should have been ready, and I wasn't. And I'm sorry.
What?
I'm gonna pull it up right now, and I'm gonna tell you.
That Netflix show about video games?
No. Shit. Where's my recently watched? God damn it! Stop it! It's being loud in my. Continue watching. Did we not watch this on Netflix? I swear to God, we watched this on Netflix yesterday. So the documentary that just came out about
video games.
No.
I just said that.
No. It's about like social media.
Oh, okay.
Socially present or something like that.
Sure. On Netflix, we'll say.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, this examines how social media has twisted society and human culture, and how we're kind of headed to this world where we're going to be virtual based only, right? So your avatar is your person, yada, yada, yada. So Ready Player One, we're there, right? Where they live the world in the oasis, right? The whole 9 yards. So it's really interesting to watch them literally not even 24 hours apart. I watched the documentary last night, and then I watched this today. But the movie itself, lots of fun. I understand that the novel is beloved, and maybe the movie didn't capture it
It's just they had to change it significantly to make it fit more of a movie structure.
Okay.
And I know there's even more pop culture references in the book. Like, there's the movie is like one after the other, which is insanely fun. But yeah.
The Social Dilemma is the name of the documentary.
You really hung up on that one.
Thank you. It was going to be with me all night.
Nice. But yeah, so in the book is definitely beloved. And the second one comes out this fall, I believe, Ready Player 2. But yeah, so the whole 3 keys structure of the movie, where there's 3 challenges they have to find in order to become the one who takes over the Oasis. That was all built for the movie just to give it more of a proper structure than what the book offers. So it's interesting because Ready Player One did a decent amount of business, almost 600 million worldwide, and it was pretty positively reviewed critically in terms of the visuals.
Visuals are beautiful.
This was Steven's first foray into that sort of world, and he did it amazingly, right?
Well, and talk about the goat getting off the mat. Like, oh, you thought I was done?
Yeah. Right. And this was right after The Post, so vastly different movies. But yeah, so it was pretty positively reviewed. I think the people who loved the book liked the movie, but they liked the book more, and just the differences. I can understand that. But they did like the movie, but it's just they were different enough, and the book was more so in their minds. But I think this movie is either fairly rated or a little underrated, just because so many people are hung up on how great the book is. But the movie itself is just so much fun.
Because I said to you, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch Fight Club to get ready for today's show. And you're like, watch Ready Player One. And I'm like, fine, I don't want to watch a new movie. And I watched it and was just delighted by it.
Yeah,
the entire time. I was like, this is fun. I like this. This has a lot of elements that I like in movies. This is cute and fun. Also,
Sheridan. Yeah.
Thank you. Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cook. Awesome. Love them in it. Lena Waithe from Master of None. She's one of his close friends. They were studs. They were great in the movie. Absolutely loved them. I hope for I know in particular Lena Waithe has star written all over her moving forward, but I hope that the 2 kids are equally as successful moving forward.
Yeah, so underrated a little bit.
Yeah.
But okay, well, that about wraps it up in terms of book to movie. I mean, there's so many things you could talk about with adaptations and translating them to both the film screen, and the silver screen for TV. So an infinite number of things, and there's so many adaptations out there, especially in today's world, with graphic novels and big franchises and things like that. So this was just a taste of it, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly become an interesting topic, especially lately, because of how prevalent this type of stuff is in the marketplace. So it's great to go back and look at, which ones were done right, which ones were done wrong, and a little bit of why of each of those. So do you have any other ones that you want to throw out there to wrap it up, or anything in closing there, Josh?
Man, I don't think, other than that, you know what? I think the best movies are made from books.
Wow, that's interesting.
I really do, because I think that it gives them a broader structure to work from, not only the director, not only, the cinematographer, but the actors. It gives the actors a legitimate backstory and maybe more exposition that the actors need to accurately play a character. So I really appreciate books that are turned into movies 90% of the time.
Absolutely. And not that there's not great original work out there, but
True.
Certainly fantastic.
We need more of the books turned into movies and great original pieces.
Absolutely.
I'm tired of
comic books.
I'm tired of comic books. I'm tired of video game movies. I'm tired of all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a renaissance.
We'll get there. We're getting there. I think now we're declining with the superhero stuff. Once Endgame came out, I think that's going to be the decline.
Well, Chadwick Boseman's dead, so I don't know how
I didn't mean like the literal decline, like they're all going to die.
I don't know how they I legitimately do not know how the Marvel universe moves on without Black Panther. But
they have 40 million other characters. But anyway, that's a whole separate show. So thank you guys for tuning in this week to our book to film edition of Thoughts from the Movies. We will be back from our new studios next Wednesday at 8 o'clock for another movie topic. So we will see you guys then.
Thank you to Union Fitness for creating this new beautiful studio for us. We appreciate you guys. So
we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.